Welcome to part two of News Channel Nebraska's three-part interview with new University of Nebraska President Dr. Jeffrey Gould. In this segment, Gould shares his thoughts on where Nebraska fits into the state of higher education in the 21st century and who he'd like to see helping lead NU's campuses going forward. As you start here first month of the presidency, where do you see the standing of the search for the next chancellor? What type of person are you looking for to be the next leader at UNK?
Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to broaden the question a little bit. Sure. Because it touches on the fact that we also now have an interim at UNMC. In both instances, with Charlie Bisek in Kearney and Deli Davies at UNMC, we have two wonderful, experienced people who not only know the campuses, know the system, served for over a decade in their current senior leadership roles. You know, truthfully, we pulled Charlie out of retirement, and I'm guessing his family is okay with that. Maybe not quite so much, but Charlie is certainly enthusiastic about it, and I know Deli is also very enthusiastic. So first, I would say there's no rush. Secondly, the urgency, while it would be really nice to fill these positions tomorrow with qualified people, and there are some that wish we could and think we should, the bigger question is, what does the future structure of the University of Nebraska system look like? And by that I mean, we, from 1968, when the final ink dried on the legislature that created the University of Nebraska system, it was glued together from multiple different campuses, each with somewhat differing missions, somewhat differing administrative structures, somewhat differing financial structures, different programs, of course, different locations. And the question really is that model, the way it was put together back in 1968, the model that is going to be most successful for us in 2028 and thereafter. And I just pulled that number out of thin air just to give us a couple of years of runway. And until we answer that question, I'm not sure what the job description looks like for the future chancellor at UNK or at UNMC.
That's certainly a discussion that's been starting, and I think that there might be some folks maybe in Kearney on the Omaha campus or even out in Curtis who might be a little nervous when they hear that, about what that means for the future of their campuses. What kind of thoughts have you given to what that future might hold, and how much of your experience leading both UNMC and UNO for a time is sort of factored into this? How much of that experience is going to factor into ultimately what the decision will be?
So the North Star has got to be access and affordability to amazingly high quality higher education and a unique student experience. That is to say, as I've said during my vetting period, one of my highest goals was to have every high school student in the United States have at least one night that they get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and say, wow, if I could only go to the University of Nebraska. And what that means, what it translates to me as it relates to the discussion we're having about the campuses and the structures, how do we bring out the best in each of our campuses? How do we identify where their strengths are, and also where there are opportunities that we could create unique synergies? The higher education world continues to change. There are endless questions about the value of higher education, and we'll probably touch on that at a later time. But we have to be sure that when those students come here, and they will, because Nebraskans are really proud of their university, they love our athletics programs, they love our cultural programs, whether it's in poetry or literature or music and the arts. There's certainly, as I'm well aware, there's tremendous competition for our health professions programs, etc. But at the end of the day, what they need to have is a wonderful educational experience and an academic experience that empowers them to do whatever they want to do. And that means whether they choose to go to Kearney, whether they choose to go to Omaha, here in Lincoln, Curtis, fill in the blank, they have to have that magic experience. And that means bringing out the best of what we have in those campuses and then investing to continue to make sure that that stays the best and continues to grow. Again, we need to be attractive from not just an affordability perspective, because there's a good deal of affordability across the United States. Now, I like to think what we offer is unique, particularly to Nebraskans. I think there's a benefit of going to college in the state that you grew up in because you know it well, and that's where your friends and siblings are, assuming you get along with your siblings. But that's where you meet your future family members as well.
You mentioned the bigger picture discussion that is going on, not just in Nebraska, but really nationwide, about higher education and the purpose of higher education. There is a lot of discussion going on, a lot of businesses out there that are saying, we need people now. We don't necessarily have the luxury of waiting for 4 years for folks to get whatever degree they're going to get. We need jobs filled now. Is there a quicker way that we can do this? What do you see as the purpose of 4-year college educational institutions? How do you think that's going to evolve in the future, and where does the University of Nebraska fit into that?
Well, I'd like to think, and I believe, that that we're going to be leading the pack by having multiple different options, multiple different tracks through higher education as we have now. But coming back to your earlier question about the value of higher education, I mean, maybe I'm a few years out of the cycle of what our students are experiencing today, more than a few years. But I can tell you, without higher education, and without, by the way, affordability and scholarship support, I mean, I'd be driving a cab in the inner city of New York. No disrespect to those people who do it. They do it well, and many of them have wonderful family lives and earn a good living doing so. But there is no question that higher education is empowering. And I do believe that while it doesn't teach people what to think, it helps people learn how to think, how to analyze complex problems, how to analyze the environment in which they live, whether you're a farmer rancher, whether you're a future banker or you're a future heart surgeon. It doesn't make any difference. It provides that solid foundation of ability to understand what you read and what you hear on the media, to put things into perspective, to analyze data, and to give you a perspective on things that you may not have been experiencing. You know, I can tell you that the humanities courses that I took in college, I frankly never would have been exposed to if I took a straight career shot through, pre-med. You might imagine, even with engineering requirements and pre-med requirements, I still had plenty of time for the arts, took a bunch of architecture courses. I took a phenomenal course or two in archaeology, which, I never would have dreamed that I'd be interested in, but it's created a lifetime interest in archaeology for me, as have my architecture courses. As many as your audience may know, I'm a frustrated architect at heart. It's never too late, as they say. But what we need to do is be sure that our students have that kind of unique experience, and that value is there. Now, what's shifted, Eric, is that other routes have become increasingly important, and by that I mean non-traditional students. There are students that will graduate from high school or get an associate degree at a community college, get a job, earn some money, maybe start a family, and then decide they want to complete their degree. And we need to be welcoming to them. We have to be able to upskill people, that is to say, people who have a college degree, or maybe even more, whose job requirements are changing. We haven't talked about it, but this whole era of generative artificial intelligence, or Gen AI, is requiring a lot of technology. But even, the farming ranching communities, without the advent of digital agriculture, which has been so prominent here in Nebraska to create the yields that we're seeing now, and indeed provide, for a stable financial future for the agricultural communities, requires a set of skills that, most of the older farmers and ranchers, people my generation, may not have had when they went to high school or went to college. And so we have to be the place that can happen. Furthermore, we have to be welcoming to students that are of high school age who have advanced knowledge and advanced skills. And that falls into the bucket of what we call dual enrollment. And for your audience that may not be familiar with that concept, that's high school students who take college courses for college credit, and that they can accelerate their program and maybe finish in a more expedited fashion. So I guess what I'm saying is the word with a capital F is flexibility. We have got to be flexible, and we have to meet our students where they are. Governor Pillen has said many times, and he has said to me privately more times than I can count, and I'm so honored to hear him say that, is that our students, our children, are our future. And we have to do everything we can to make sure that they're successful. We have to meet them where they are, understand what their needs are, and then roll up our sleeves and make sure not just some of them are successful, but that all of them are successful. And that's where the university has to fill in.
The other side of value is affordability, and that's the biggest barrier for anyone attending college. And frankly, as we've certainly reported on, that's becoming a barrier just for operation of colleges. We've talked about the cuts at UNK, certainly the budget period at the University of Nebraska, and the overall cuts and the tuition increases there. Fiscally, where do you see the university standing now? What needs to be the goal to keep providing that value and filling all those goals that you want to fill while doing so in a way that people will be able to afford?
Well, first, I think we have to be completely transparent with what the opportunities and challenges are from the affordability side of the equation. And first of all, this is a discussion that is happening widely across public universities and colleges, private systems across the country as well. And if there was a magic answer to that, if there was a magic bullet, believe me, we'd have it right here. I promise you that. And I think just to put this into perspective, what's the cause of it? And the cause of it is pretty simple, and that is inflationary costs. Buying a dozen eggs for food services, salary and benefits for people that maintain our grounds and provide our services, our faculty, our staff, the cost of renovating and updating our facilities, which we really need to do to provide safe and welcoming environment, is accelerating faster than the affordability for students and their families. And so over time, that gap keeps getting bigger and bigger. So if you look at for instance, the Consumer Price Index, the CPI, and you look at the overall national average, and then you look at the changes in inflation as it relates to higher education, it's typically a couple percent, 1 to 1.5, sometimes in a year 2% greater than that. Well, in 1 year, 2%, you can absorb that. Over decades, that becomes a larger and larger problem, which means that we have to be extremely critical of what we're doing, look at our programs, minimize duplication, optimize efficiency. We've done everything we can, and I can tell you over the last decade, I'm in my 11th year here now, I am sure we've taken over $100 million. I'll say that again, $100 million out of the operating budget of the university through reductions. And we've done the overwhelming majority of that through what I would call back-of-the-house administrative services. Now, that's not to say that we haven't eliminated programs that had little or no student interest enrollment in them. Unfortunately, if you look at the books, we have any number of programs that have relatively low student enrollment, and we try to maintain, at least some minimal level. I mean, what was really interesting and high enrollment in 1968, coming back to our earlier discussion, may not be what students want to study today. And indeed, many instances, it's not. And so we need to continually refresh. If you look at an average Board of Regents agenda, there are programs that are being eliminated. There are programs that are being transitioned into other programs to make them more attractive to students and to hire the right faculty to teach them. And then there are new programs. For instance, there's a program that's going to be reviewed in the next several weeks by our Academic Affairs Committee in generative artificial intelligence. Well, I'm guessing in 1968, no one was thinking about generative artificial intelligence and ChatGPT and, you know, OpenAI and those sorts of things. But we need to be in that position, and I'm going to guess that that major will be pretty exciting to students. As a matter of fact, I might take a few courses there.
Now, in our third segment, we talk about the American Association of Universities. Can Nebraska rejoin the AAU? Does it need to? And yes, we'll talk Husker sports as well. We'll see you same time tomorrow right here on News Channel Nebraska.